All right, Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down Miami. We do it the very West way that I know possible. Bring on Cam Underwood from State of the U to talk the Canes. 77-0 was the score against Savannah State on Saturday. Of course, nothing's going to quite make up for what happened in week one until there's a big win under the belt. So not necessarily this week, but there can be positive signs in the right direction as we move forward. Cam, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm good. Just trying to power through the rest of this week and everything personally. But, got a nice game, or at least another Canes game coming up on Saturday. So, I'm good and glad to be here and happy to talk with all you guys. So let's have some fun.
Yeah, let's do it. So let's start just to clean up a little bit of laundry, administrative type news. We got to go through the injury report, which isn't necessarily having a whole lot of fun, but it needs to be done. So one of your impact players going to sit for another week.
Yeah, Amon Richards, star wide receiver, number one wide receiver, is out again. He hurt his knee in the LSU game. Let me move that down a little bit. There we go. Hurt his knee in the LSU game and did not play last week against Savannah State either, and seems to still be nursing that. Apparently, some Canes fans are bashing him for being injured or something. I haven't personally seen that because I try to sanitize my timeline. But, I mean, if people are doing that, stop, honestly. I mean, the kid is injured. And I would rather him sit against Savannah State and Toledo, than more important, impactful games later on, So if you need to take a couple weeks, fine, Maybe he rushed back a little bit last year when he had that hamstring and things like that and, whatnot. Obviously, you don't want to see him have another kind of lost season like last year, for having an injury kind of spin forward. But in any event, Amon Richards is, not going to play on Saturday, and the hope and goal is obviously to have him healthy once we, hit ACC play. So if he doesn't play this week and he doesn't play next week against FIU either, I'm good with that. We're not if we're not able to win, I think that there are bigger problems. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully, Miami's able to pull through. So there's that. Freshman Gregory Rousseau broke his ankle, or fractured, I should say, in the Savannah State game. He just had surgery yesterday or today as we're recording this, and he's going to be out indefinitely as he is returning, or will be, rehabbing and coming back from that injury and surgery. So, we wish him the best. And obviously, that thins out some of the depth at defensive line or defensive end. And Gregory Rousseau was a guy who flashed in the spring as being very good. He was already making plays, in the fall, in these games and things like that. So, having a guy of his talent and also size, I mean, he's 6'7" with like a 7-foot wingspan almost. And, he's up to from 205 to like 240 already. I mean, he's a freak, and you have a guy that size when you're 6'6", 6'7", 235, 240 at a defensive end. And he's really just scratching the surface of his potential because, again, in high school, he played wide receiver and safety because he was only 205 pounds or 190 even before. I mean, he's tall and thin as can be. So he's really just scratching the surface, but already making plays. So, we're going to miss him. And that thins out the depth, like I said, at defensive end, especially behind John Garvin and Joseph Jackson. Scott Patchen, he's really going to have to be a key rotation guy. Patrick Joyner, who played linebacker / rush end in high school, he's at defensive end right now, and maybe even take a guy like a Terry McRae who played that similar linebacker and, hand in the dirt rush end and third downs in high school, maybe put him back at defensive end as well. So there's that. But, the good news is the rest of the team is healthy. That includes Demetrius Jackson, who can play defensive end and defensive tackle. So there goes another guy with some, talent along the defensive line. Like I said, he missed last week's game against Savannah State as well, along with Amon Richards, that is, with a tweaked knee situation. And Jackson, he's going to be back as a full go. So he might not play his full allotment, normal allotment of snaps, but he will be in part of this game. So that will hopefully help bridge the gap of losing a Russo at the defensive end position. So, you get, two guys down, one guy back, and hopefully Amon Richards will be healthy enough by the, start of ACC play, which, Florida State on October 6th. There's only a couple of games between now and then. So, hopefully he'll be back healthy and everything. So that's what the injury report situation is looking like right now.
Cam, to me, this is the worst element of football right here, is that in any sport, there are injuries. Baseball, hockey, basketball, there are injuries, but there are very few that take a guy out for the remainder of his season. In football, they come in threes and fives, and that's why that's why it's a sport of attrition. Depth is very important. And just the first thing that I think about when I think of a guy that's been hurt for the season, especially when it's early in the season, it's one thing when he's played 10 or 11 games, then he gets hurt for the remainder of the season. That's important. That's crucial. That's too bad for him. But man, when these guys work out every day, study film, workout, team meetings, travel, do all the things that they do to prepare themselves for a season, go through two-a-days, go through the preparation through August camp and all that, and then bam, they get hit with injuries and they're lost for the season. That's just too bad. That's just part of the deal, but it's too bad to hear.
Yeah, I mean, it's never good. I don't wish injury upon anybody on any team ever. And I know that there are people who, know that I've been fairly critical of certain guys on Miami's roster in the past and even present. But, I wish them all well. I don't want to see anybody get injured and anything like that. If just for no other reason personally, like, I had a season-ending injury in high school. I tore my ankle apart and everything and was on crutches. And no, I wasn't, like an NBA prospect or anything like that. But, like, even having to go through that personally, like, I know what that recovery is like. I know what relearning how to walk is like. I know what 6 months on crutches and having your whole all these things. I know what that's like personally. So I definitely don't wish that upon anybody. Seeing things like that, and hopefully Russo will be able to recover. And obviously Amon Richards is kind of like it's an injury, yeah, but it's not like he had or needs surgery or anything like that. So hopefully those come back. But yeah, injuries suck in general, and I don't wish them for anybody, and I hope these guys recover quickly from them.
Cam Underwood's on the line from State at the U. Please join him there for the very best in Miami sports coverage. Football is king, and football season is upon us finally. And there is significance to the naming of the captain this week, and I will let you take it from there because it's obviously a name that rings true in Miami lore.
Yeah, there's always 4 captains for every game, and I should have been prepared for this already. Captains, as I search Twitter real quick. But yeah, so your 4 captains for this week's game, as it loads, are Hayden Mahoney from the offensive line, Joe Jackson from the defensive line, the cyborg freak that I've been talking to you guys about for 5 years now, Sheldrick Redwine, not Jaquan Johnson, but the other safety, his lifelong friend. They were born at the same hospital on the same day. They played together their entire lives from Optimist through middle school and high school and now college. So Redwine, he's your 3rd one. And then Al Blades Jr. is your 4th captain this week for special teams, and that's pretty awesome. So he is, the son of Al Blades Sr., his dad of the same name, who, unfortunately passed away a few years ago when Al Jr. was just a child. But yeah, Al Blades Jr., he's been around the Miami Hurricanes his entire life. Like I said, his father played, if you ever seen any of the videos, of those guys chanting back in the, 2000s, we're going, Heidi, 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 hey, all those things. Those chants were led by Al Blades Sr., so he's been around all that. His uncles, Brian and Benny Blades, both a receiver and a safety, they went to the U and then had the 2 of them very long NFL careers. Benny Blades played for the Lions when I was growing up, so I knew him as number 36 for my Detroit Lions before I even knew that he went to the U and anything like that. So yeah, Al Blades is like a multiple connection legacy to the University of Miami program, and it's really cool to see him playing very well, obviously, and not just on special teams and base defense. Trajan Bandy got ejected from the LSU game, and Al Blades came in and he played that slot position. And, I mean, he did better than I thought, he was going to do. And that's awesome. He played a lot. Obviously, when you're blowing a team out by 11 touchdowns, your 2s and 3s are going to get some run against Savannah State. And Al Blades, he's played with the 1s and into the 2 part, and he played very well. So, I mean, it's just really cool to see, and the normal kind of rules of engagement for freshmen is they don't get interviewed by the media. They're not put up for media availability until they've played in a game or they've done something significant. But Al Blades was made available to the media this week because, he's captain based upon his play. And it was just good to see, and it's a great story. He's, like I said, he's a lifelong Cane. Even, extending back into his lineage and everything. And he's going to be one of the captains as the Canes go up to Toledo this week and, looks to be carving out a very, big role on this team for himself this year and moving forward. Number 7 in your programs, number 1 in your hearts, Al Blades Jr. is going to be with captain. I mean, it's just really, really cool. It was really a great gesture to see. And, from other players on the team, like, even a DJ Dallas, Gerald Willis III, and, coaches, Mark Richt and Manny Diaz. And I mean, just across the board, like Al Blades has just gotten rave reviews for coming in and working hard and then playing very well. So, yeah, I mean, it's really awesome. It's a great thing to see, through the recruiting process. Al Blades, he went to St. Thomas Aquinas, was a 4-star recruit. He went to the Prime 21 DB camp as a sophomore. He won MVP there. He was All-American. He was doing all these things. And he visited some other schools and, people were getting all, in their feelings about it. Like, oh, where's he going to go? What's he going to do? And he was just like, I mean, y'all can talk about like, if you don't bleed orange and green, but like, I've been here. Like, I was there for the origination of the swag, like my family, like Brian, Benny, my dad, who has my name, you know what I'm saying? Or like, I have his name. Like, yo, I've been here. Like, I don't know if people just on Twitter were going crazy at him. He's just like, who are you talking to? Like, what? Like, come on, so, but yeah, just to have that kind of mentality and then back it up, especially on 2 games into your freshman year. I mean, it would have been a special story if Al Blades Jr., as a junior in college, would have been a captain and This is game 3 of his freshman year, and he's going to be a captain. You know what I'm saying? It's a really cool situation. It's a really great honor for him, just for him. And, obviously his father's legacy, God rest his soul. And, for, his family members who have played at the U, before him and everything else. So, yeah, I mean, it's really a great thing. So, those 4 guys are captain. But, yeah, the real kind of storyline of the captaincy this week is Al Blades Jr. And, I mean, I think that you understand a little bit more about that now, and it's pretty cool.
So I saw both Brian and Benny play a lot of football as you did in the NFL. So Brian Blades, Seattle Seahawks wide receiver. He may have gone elsewhere, but that's where he played the bulk of his time. And as you mentioned, Benny Blades, I believe, was the number 3 selection overall in the NFL draft. And he was just an outstanding talent, both of them. Brian Blades, more wide receiver, played a lot, started for a long time, very productive. But Benny was kind of like, one of the top safeties in the NFL for a considerable length of time. So they made their marks at the college level, obviously winning championships, and then at the next level as NFL stars. So very cool, very just a huge lineage there to mark this again, naming of the captain of the 4 against Toledo. MarkRogersTV, voice of college football, bring on the best bloggers, broadcasters, and writers in the nation. And when I say best bloggers, I typically have Cam in mind, others in mind as well. But Cam was one of the first people that joined me 4 years ago, something in that range, 4 or 5 years ago, I think. I think it was the 2013 college football season. So it's been a while since we connected with Cam, and he has provided some of our best moments here on the channel. So Toledo, Miami, of course, the 2 teams got together in Miami last year. 2 things I'm going to hit you with here, Cam. Number 1, your memory of game, which I remember as being really close for a half, fairly close for 3/4. Miami runs away in the quarter. Logan Woodside, of course, Toledo's quarterback at the time, moving on to compete at least at the next level. I don't know if he made a team, but I know he was in an NFL camp. And then your thoughts in regards to anything that you've collected about the Rockets in terms of this rematch in Toledo.
Yeah, I mean, last year's game was, Toledo was up at the half. Toledo was leading 16-10. So I won't even just say, oh, it was close. Like, I mean, Miami was trailing, like, and didn't really look good. D. Delaney got burned a couple times. On either, just some miscommunication or some bad coverage. Toledo likes to go up tempo. They have, 3 or 4 receivers who, like, they're probably not going to be NFL players or, maybe journeymen in the NFL, but for college players, they're pretty darn good, So they took full advantage of the opportunities that they had. Yeah, it was very close through 3 quarters. And then, Miami was able to pull away and win by, like 18, it was like 42-30 something, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, it was it ended up getting stretched out a little bit at the end because just Miami's preponderance of talent shown through at the end of that game. Yeah, and that's really what I remember. I think that I had a work event that day, so I was kind of like between my work event and like trying between like what I'm doing and everything, and finally got done and was able to just go watch on the computer for the last little bit. And I was just or the lunch break for my event, it was like, what, like halftime and Toledo's winning? Like, what's going on? Like, it was pretty crazy. So yeah, I mean, it was an up and down kind of a thing last year. I don't remember all the blow by blow. I know that we had all the recap stuff up on the website, and like I said, other people wrote it because I was otherwise obligated that day. But yeah, I think Miami eventually was able to get the run game going. Malik Rozier obviously hit some throws and things like that to settle himself down and get the offense moving. So that's my recollection of last year's game. For this year, Logan Woodside, their record-setting quarterback at Toledo, is out of eligibility. He's moved on to either somebody's practice squad or whatever. But they have 2 quarterbacks, I believe, who played in the opener. Michael Guagdani was the more passing quarterback, and I forget the other kid's name. But they're still going to try to throw the ball around, and all of the wide receivers that gashed Miami last year are back at Toledo. So you're Desmond Phillips, I'm blanking on the names. I can just look at the matchup piece that's up on State of the U because obviously my buddy Matt Washington, who wrote that, included this information. So if I scroll down, and this is the thing that you can do. Deontay Johnson is another one. He's actually a Florida native, so he's a guy who has put up big numbers. There's another one too. No, I don't see the rest of the names. But anyway, there are a few guys, all of those receivers who did numbers before are back for Toledo. So they're probably, they're going to be a little bit better and more efficient as college players. So that really is going to stress Miami's defensive backfield because they know their system already. They know how to run those routes. They have that athletic ability. And, when you are more experienced, better, usually. So, it's really going to become important for, Miami to really play well on all 3 levels. The defensive line is going to need to get pressure. The linebackers are going to need to cover and then also get pressure when their number is called to blitz or get up the field, or that opportunity presents itself on like a rollout play or something, which I'm sure, the defense has rules for, the quarterback breaks the pocket, what the linebackers are supposed to do. And then the defensive backfield, I know that Miami and Manny Diaz likes to bring pressure off the outside from the defensive backs or the corners at times. So they're going to have to be good at that. But then also their coverage, if it's man, if it's zone, whatever it is, they really are going to need to be on their P's and Q's because that's the calling card for a Toledo team is the offense, led by Jason Candle, their head coach, who is probably going to be upwardly mobile. Jason Candle, that is, he is able to get a couple, another strong season or 2 and maybe a marquee win or something like that. He's going to be on to bigger and better things. And, you've seen lots of coaches from the MAC conference who go up to other things, like Urban Meyer was at Bowling Green. He goes to Utah. He goes to Florida. He goes to that terrible place in the state south of Michigan now where he's suspended and should have gotten fired. But I digress because we already spoke about that. Dino Baber, he followed, from there. You have other guys, Matt Campbell, who was actually before Jason Candle at Toledo going to Iowa State. So you have a lot of guys, the training ground there and everything. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure that if we're talking about the Miami side of things going into the game, that there's storylines to be had there. So yeah,
Nick Saban, Lou Holtz,
yeah,
Doran at NC State, whole lot of guys, coming from the MAC. So I'm looking at Toledo's stats for this year. They oddly did not play a game last week. That's what's showing me on College Football Reference, that they played September 1st, completely crushed, I believe, VMI. And the quarterback that you mentioned, 11 of 16, 3 TDs for whatever it's worth. Yeah, they've got a number of guys. Again, they were in a situation which they completely annihilated someone. So the distribution of the passes and the runs were all over the place. So we'll see what they have for us this time around. You mentioned, and somebody mentioned on the probably deference to the closeness of the game at Miami, having to travel as you almost did against Arkansas State and did against App State, and Miami being one of the rare elite programs that takes these kind of trips, going to Toledo, that the Rockets are just a 10.5 point underdog in this game. And the Toledo Blade apparently had some either amusing or annoying slant on this, depending on your perspective, I guess.
It wasn't really annoying. It was just note for note. It was a perfect copy, pitch perfect copy of an article, basically ahead of the Appalachian State game from 2016. Talking about how the team has been good, and Toledo went like 11-3 last year, so they won their conference. So obviously there was some good performance. I mean, at a Group of 5 level. I mean, not a national championship kind of level. But they're doing that, and they get this mid-tier team to come by, like it was a Boise State and whoever else, and now it's going to be the showstopper of a lifetime by having the Miami Hurricanes coming to town, and it's just going to be one of those things where you'll always remember where you were, and you'll forget it, and all kinds of things like that. So I mean, it is a big deal to have Miami come to your small town, and I get why Arkansas State, decided to overlook everything in the Hurricane situation last year and get in their feelings because this singular opportunity was lost from them. Now, Appalachian State, obviously Miami went there. Obviously Miami's going to Toledo, but the thing about it, and there's an article actually that I have open on my computer right here from Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. The genesis of these situations is the fact that Miami does not have the liquid cash of other major programs. Because to do what you normally do is you bring a team like Toledo in or Appalachian State in, you play them, you beat them, and then instead of doing the home and going to their home, you pay them their money or a reasonable fee to buy out of that return game because, we're Miami. Like, when was the last time Alabama went to Troy? When was the last time, Nebraska went to Campbell University in Nebraska? Like, those games don't happen because they pay them off, they bring them in, they buy out of the return game. Miami doesn't have that kind of money. And if you're talking about in the shadow of the Nevin Shapiro scandal, boosters were really not trying to pony up that cash for the program because, the investigation and the subsequent sanctions and things like that. So, game are we going to buy or out of the return trip? And what games are we going to just kind of take the show on the road and, do what we got to do? So those three, Appalachian State, Arkansas State, and Toledo ended up being those three that they wanted to do. So, yeah, that is the long story short of why the Miami Hurricanes are traveling to little old Toledo in the Glass Bowl on this Saturday.
And just to put that payoff into context, it's typically from just memory of hearing. And there's that handful of games that you hear about, the Clemsons, the Ohio States, the Michigans, on, that to have to pay those fees. It's between or don't have to, but they choose to. 800,000 to $1.2 million are the numbers that I typically have heard in that $1 million range.
Yep.
Come and play and get murdered by 50 points. What happens? Miami scored 28 in the fourth quarter to stretch that game out to 52-30. That was the final. And Logan Woodside with a nice game, 3 touchdowns, 342 yards rushing, or 342 passing. Malik Rocher threw for 331, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Mark Walton. Doesn't it seem like Mark Walton was on this team like 6 years ago? Doesn't it seem that long ago? It just seems odd. This time last year, Mark Walton's on the field, and he ran for 204 yards against Toledo.
Just odd. It does seem forever ago, that Mark Walton was on the roster. But, yeah, that was just a year ago and everything. And yeah, he had a really big game, a couple really big runs in that game. And hopefully if the offensive line is able to create some holes, Miami has talent, that is at or above Mark Walton's level. If we're just talking athletic ability, to be able to gash Toledo, and control the game, on the ground as well as through the air, depending on, whatever, excuse me, the situation of the game dictates and everything. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. But yeah, 52-30. So it was a little bit over what my initial recollection of the score was, because like I said, I only watched part of the game last year. But yeah, and Toledo is only a 10-point underdog, and I think that is kind of a carryover from week one. They did win 66-3 against VMI. Miami lost to LSU in the last time that anybody really looked at Miami, because last week's game was streaming on ESPN3, and even though the announced attendance was 60,000 some change, it was probably in like the mid 50s. It wasn't as many people as the paid attendance, and there's always that at pretty much every sporting event ever. But yeah, the last time that people saw Miami lost pretty badly. And Toledo does have a high-powered offense. You're looking like, okay, LSU was up 33-3 on these guys, and most people probably turn the game off right then when you're down by 30 points. So yeah, I think 10 points or 10.5 is reasonable until Miami goes out and proves, that we're the hammer and not the nail. You know what I mean? Like, you just got to go out and be bigger, better, stronger, faster than them and everything. And, I know that the article from the Toledo Blade, I said was a pitch-perfect copy to the Appalachian State articles from 2016. But I think that this game is going to be a pretty similar copy to that. I think that Toledo can make it close for a while. I think that they can scheme up some things to be competitive for a half, or, maybe halfway into the third quarter, but they can't really play with us. And I know that's me being cocky. I know that's me, sounding in that kind of a way with arrogance and bravado about the team and the talent and the performance, even when the performance has not necessarily been great this season. And I've said that even last week against Savannah State, Miami only averaged 2.4 yards a carry in the first half before, we started gashing them for, 30 and 40. And, Lorenzo Lingard had 64-yard touchdown in the fourth quarter, kind of like, when Frank Gore was the number 4 running back as a freshman in 2001, I want to say, before he tore his ACL. And he had, 2 touchdowns of like 80 yards each in the fourth quarter of a game against some also-ran team like that. And, the team was like, well, why are you running up the score? And he said, look, we ran inside zone or off tackle. If you don't tackle the kid, it's not our fault. And Lorenzo Lingard looked like that. So there is talent, to be had there. So, I think that if Miami, I need to stop saying, sorry, that's my own mental thing. Sorry. Anyways, Miami, your talent, Miami does have just bigger, faster, stronger guys. And over the course of a 60-minute game, I think that is going to be something that bears itself out to be true. And the Miami Hurricanes should win by double digits.
Cam Underwood on the line from State of the U. Join him right there. The rest of the crew as well for the U. As we move through the football season at 1-1, they travel to Toledo for those pesky Rockets, who gave them a game 16-10 at half. Rockets last year in Miami, and 52-30 as the Canes came back and ran away with it in the fourth quarter. We've got AC on the line asking, what do you think the role that John and Mark Richt have played in Malik Roche's struggles?
Everybody wants to talk about Mark Richt and his play calling being substandard. There were guys running butt naked, wide open, doing backflips and cartwheels all night long against LSU. If you go back on my Twitter feed, Dan Gould, he's a Canes fan. He's an analyst. He's, contributed or given statistics, things to Matt Porter from the Palm Beach Post, Barry Jackson at the Miami Herald now. I've used a lot of his things on Twitter and, in my writing as well. He put up screenshots, and there was a play. Amon Richards is to the one side, and you had 2 receivers on the other side. It was Cager and it was Jeff Thomas on the inside. And there was a single high safety, and he's like, okay, cool. The safety went to the Richards side because Amon Richards is that guy, so you have to, shade that way, and said, okay, well, and there's nobody else there, so there has to be another defensive back over the top on the other screenshot. And he puts the other screenshot up, and there's nobody over Jeff Thomas. And the play, he's running a 9 route. He's running a go. The outside receiver is running a comeback. It's a classic combination. So the cornerback is going to stay with Cager. And if you put the ball anywhere near Jeff Thomas, he's still running. You know what I mean? Jeff Thomas was so open in that game, he could have easily had 250, 280 yards without really even doing much, with just Malik Rozier putting the ball near him. If we had throws like the touchdown from last week, the 67-yard touchdown, after on the far sideline, Malik Rozier airmailed one to Jeff Thomas. He couldn't save that throw, even though he went up the ladder, got it, that he came down out of bounds. That was the play before that touchdown pass. That touchdown pass was pinpoint perfect. And Jeff Thomas was wide open. So there have been open guys for a long time. So the Mark Richt side of things, I don't know, especially as a play caller, I'm not buying into that because, and maybe it's because I played a lot of Madden, I played a lot of NCAA. Even in the press box, people have said, whoa, how did you see all of that? I don't know. I just do. It's the way that I'm wired. You can see guys running wide open all the time. So I'm not really there for that on Mark Richt as a play caller being a part and parcel of Malik Rozier's struggles. Because if you have guys who are wide open, you should be able to hit them. It just stands to reason. It's not a contested catch. It's not a tight window or things like that. Guys running butt naked wide open, throw the ball, put it on them in the frame, catch it, move on. The individual coaching part of things in the quarterback room between John Richt and Mark Richt and Malik Rozier, that's a thing that interests me. That is a thing that I've mentioned as, needing some addressing. That's the thing that a lot of Canes fans have talked about. Even in an article on The Athletic today, Manny Navarro, formerly of the Miami Herald, now of The Athletic, he wrote a piece evaluating Malik Rozier and maybe if there could be a quarterback change and things like that, and it talked a little bit about the relationship between quarterback coach and quarterback. And I saw the video of Malik Rozier after practice the other day. So I heard the quotes and I saw how he said them and all of those things. I coaching at the University of Miami. I honestly do. And if the quarterback's coach last name was anything other than Richt, I think that people would be more critical of him. And yeah, I wrote a coaching profile heading into the season. And at the time, you're looking at Malik Rozier having a 3,100-yard passing season, accounting for the most touchdowns in program history. At the time, he was 4 for 4, going for his quarterback recruits, John Richt was, and things like that. But even in spite of that, if you're bringing in all these talented guys and they're not seeing the field over Malik Rozier, who's moderately talented at best, that brings things into question. And, if Malik Rozier is not really progressing, and to this point of the year, he's regressed from the end of last year, which is unfathomable to me. I mean, I know it was possible, and I mentioned it in passing coming into the season, but Malik LSU was the worst that I've seen. So a fifth-year senior who has another year and a whole offseason and didn't really even have a quarterback battle because you squashed that to pretty much hand him the job right away. The quarterback coaching, it leaves a lot to be desired, and I think it is something that as time goes on, and especially if time goes on and Malik Rozier doesn't really play better individually, and there is not a change made, that's the thing that's really going to come up. So, again, in terms of play calling for Mark Richt, I'm not going to say that just go look at the plays. You go back and look at the videos, man. There's guys open. And I know the offensive line is struggling. I know the running game is struggling. But there's guys wide open. You just got to hit them. So from a play calling standpoint, I am not going to put too much on Mark Richt as being at fault for Malik Rozier's struggles. In the individual coaching room between Mark Richt, John Richt, and Malik Rozier, I think that there's a conversation to be had. if people want to have a conversation.
Yeah, so Mark Richt in particular, and John to a certain extent, but it's on Mark three different ways. So you pointed out one that we can all watch and analyze as football fans, and that would be, is Mark Richt not calling the proper plays? So that can be seen and judged and analyzed based on your football knowledge, and you just did that. The other one would be, yes, in the meeting room, on the practice field, is he failing to develop a guy that has talent? I got to think that Malik Rozier has a strong enough arm. He's mobile enough. He's got physical attributes that would point to him being a decent quarterback. But if after roughly 15 games of starting, you still can't make the throws, don't have arm talent, having the ability to throw with velocity and distance is different than having arm talent and being able to make the throws. And he just hasn't done that on a consistent basis. And I can't point to coaching there. And then the third would be, did Mark Richt make the right selection at quarterback?
I think that Mark Richt made the safe choice at quarterback, and I said that all offseason. You can go back and look at it. It was a safe choice, even from last year. Lower, like medium floor, low ceiling. It was a safe choice. Insofar as the mobility thing, Malik Rozier wants to run all the time now. And there is some of that of he's seeing ghosts because the offensive line has been turnstile-like early. But you can't really mention his mobility as a strength because Malik Rozier is one of the worst passing quarterbacks on the move that you've ever seen. And the statistics bear that out, both from Dan Gould that I've seen, D Gould, Gould, Twitter, and a piece by Manny Navarro today. The statistics bear out that Malik Rozier is abjectly terrible when he's on the move. But it doesn't make sense because he's an athletic guy and you see him running for these touchdowns and things like that. It should not be that hard to coordinate a throwing motion on the move because moving for you is a native thing. That's a thing that you do. He's not Brad Kaya, who was a statue in the pocket because he did not have that mobile ability. Malik Rozier does, but he cannot put throwing and running together, even if it's a simple rollout or things like that. But then again, the foundation of that is the fact that Malik Rozier and throwing is a contentious relationship to begin with. So now if you're adding other levels and variables to things where if he's in the pocket, things aren't always great in the pass game. Now we're going to be moving you and things like that. So you're adding other, variables to the situation. It's really not going to be that good. But, that's a thing for me that, I definitely need to see development at the position. I'm not even going to put it on Malik Rozier anymore because he's 23 years old and he's a fifth-year senior. So he is who he is. We've seen who he's going to be. To me, you got guys like N'Kosi Perry, Cade Weldon, and Jaron Williams who have more talent, more God-given talent, athleticism, whatever you want to call it, than Malik Rozier does. When N'Kosi Perry came into the game last week, first of all, there was a cheer in the stadium. Second of all, even the receiver said it. Dude, when he throws the ball, when he sets that back foot, that right foot in the ground, and he just lets it rip, woo, boy, it is pretty. Jaron Williams as well. Oh, man. Weldon, he almost threw a pick six on the first throw of his college career because, and I said it as soon as he dropped back, he was looking at the crosser. He was looking at Marquez Izzard, who was playing, the Y, and he's trying to do a crosser, and the linebacker was just right in the way. But he has a strong arm as well. You have all these guys with talent, and you're playing this guy. You're playing Malik Rozier instead. I don't understand. You have guys who are there in their second year. And, Malik Rozier, for all intents and purposes, he's a third-year guy in Mark Richt's system. He's not a true fifth-year senior. He hasn't been around this system because things changed and whatnot. Sure. But why are the guys with talent not progressing? Why are you trying to coach out N'Kosi Perry's instinct to run? And even last week, he's rolling out to his right, and everybody was playing man-to-man from Savannah State, and there was this gulf from the hash mark to the sideline that was open just like this. And he could have ran for 40 yards. And I know there's an audio podcast too. So, just imagine that I'm holding my hands apart on the screen so far that you can barely see my hands on the edge of the screen. It was a huge hole. And N'Kosi Perry looked like he wanted to run. You could see it from the press box. He said, and then he took a step forward towards the hole and he said, wait. And you could just see his brain, the gears going, and he heard Mark Richt in his head and said, don't run that ball. And so he threw the ball quick not quick, it was actually very late because he was about to run, but he threw it for a 2-yard completion on the sideline to Brevin Jordan. And he had all kinds of room. Why are you not altering your scheme to highlight the talent? You know what I'm saying? Like, why? I don't understand this. So that part of things at quarterback is really frustrating. And I'm getting more and more frustrated because for years on the site, on other podcasts, here on videos and podcasts with you, everybody knows that I've been very critical of Malik Rozier because I do not think that he, A, has the athletic ability of these other guys, or B, has the smarts and the game mentality to overcome that. Because Ken Dorsey, he did not have elite athleticism, but that ball was always there on time. It didn't matter if it was a 5-yard throw or a 50-yard throw. He knew what he needed to do to get the ball to the other people. Malik Rozier doesn't have that, and we've seen that over and over again. And to continue to be subjected to seeing this guy holding back our team because the program is ready for the next step. I know that there is an additional depth needed on offensive line. I know that there's depth needed on defensive line. I know that we're going to eventually need to replace these linebackers who've started for 3 years. But the running back room is one of the deepest in America. The linebacker room the wide receiver room, same thing. Both freshman tight ends had touchdowns last week, and they're going to be here for a long time playing really well. Defensive backs, there's a lot of talent, but they might be young. Even the kicking situation, Bubba Baxa has an awesome leg. He didn't have to kick a field goal last week, but he made all his extra points. The younger one, Zach Fiegels, started out well last week, but then he trailed off a little bit. Across the board, and that's not even taking into account the return game of Jeff Thomas, of a Mark Pope, of a DJ Dallas, of all these guys, all these dudes on the squad. The program's ready to take the next step. But you know who's not? Malik Rozier. And you know who's holding us back right now? Malik Rozier. And the offensive line as well, yes. Yeah, but a singular player, number 12 at quarterback. And so I'm frustrated because everybody can see this. Even other fan bases are saying, yo, like Ed Ordrin, Miami had the best wide receiving group that we've ever seen. They go up against Alabama, who has all 5 stars. LSU has an awesome wide receiver group. We ain't never seen a wide receiver group like Miami. You got running backs, you got all these things, and the quarterback position is what's holding this program back. And so now, if you have a singular player playing that position, like Malik Rozier, then that means I have to turn my attention to him. That's where my frustration grows from, because he's not progressing. There's other guys with more talent, and who knows if they're progressing or not, and they're probably not. Why? Because they're not giving them an opportunity to prove it in the game, because the safe option is to stick with Malik Rozier. And again, you put lipstick on a pig last year by overlooking Malik Rozier's struggles in all these games that Miami won in spite of how bad he plays. Malik Rozier, in his press conference availability the other day, he's talking about, the boos, they bother me or whatever, but there's nothing I can do about it. If you play better, people won't boo. You know what I mean? Like, it's not rocket science, bro. And it kills me because, like I said, I wish him well. He already graduated, meet a lovely lady, have kids, have a long, healthy, prosperous life in something other than sports. Because right now, you're driving me crazy and you're holding my program back, my alma mater back from other levels of greatness. And now we have to go into Toledo only being a 10-point favorite. Now, I just watched Boston College win against Wake Forest, and everybody's talking about, if Miami doesn't score on every drive down, Boston College can lean on them. It's a Friday night game. It's their red bandana game for their coach or player, I think, who it was, who passed away from cancer. So they do those awesome alternate jerseys with the red bandanas. It's a very emotional game and everything. It's a Friday night. It's going to be this crazy event. You're talking about all these things in different contexts because mainly the quarterback position is not where it needs to be. And it's frustrating, and I do not like it, and I need to see it change. But I can change because the decision's been made to roll with Malik Rozier, period. And I know that Mark Richt said, we'll play the guy who gives us the best chance. Just say you're going to play Malik Rozier all season long because that's what you mean. And I'm tired of the half measures. I'm tired of the half steps. I'm tired of the coach speak. Just come out and say it because that's what you mean. But you're not going to say that because you want to keep other guys engaged because Malik Rozier is going to graduate eventually, leave after his fifth year of eligibility. And now you got 3 guys who you can't go into next year saying openly, we did not trust you at all. It's just, I'm frustrated with the quarterback position so much. And I know that, there's more operation to make audibles. Sure, fine. But if you get us into the right play with guys running open, hit those throws, what does any of that matter?
Take a breath, Cam. Because I don't understand the motivation for Mark Richt to make such a decision. So we conjectured all off season to a certain extent, and you from a more knowledgeable position than me, but more me from just looking at the situation based on what I hear from you from watching the big games, which I see the Canes 9 or 10 times a year, and from just watching football all over the place, is that, okay, Malik Rozier gave us the season that he did last year, which was generally the North Carolinas and the Virginias and the Syracuse, in which the talent elsewhere on the field made up for his errors. He made big plays because the talent at the skill positions were so overwhelming over the competition that you couldn't help but make plays and rack up yardage and 26 touchdown passes. And then you get to the end of the year and he completes 44% of his passes and throws 7 picks and 4 TDs, and we saw what happened. Okay. I could have bought the line going into August camp or at some point in August camp that Malik Rozier has improved so much, and I'm trying to pronounce it Rozier, has made so many strides through spring camp, through individual drills, through everything that we've seen, and through the first couple of weeks of August, that he is now a much better player. Therefore, we're going to start him game 1 against LSU. I could have bought that to a certain extent, although most senior quarterbacks are really just fine-tuning their game for the next level if they're really good and they're playing at a school like Miami, versus, hey, this kid was a freshman, he made all sorts of mistakes, and now he's ready to take the next step as a sophomore. You're pretty much who you are at that point in your career as a collegiate player. So I would have been able to buy that, but I wouldn't have completely believed it had that been the decision and the rhetoric in August. But the rhetoric at the end, after losing the Orange Bowl, like a couple weeks later and into spring camp, that Malik Rozier is our quarterback. And I thought, well, nothing's happened. You haven't seen anything to see that he's surpassed these other guys that are more talented to justify this decision. So it just seemed, I was thinking the whole time, and I asked you a number of times, is this telling us that N'Kosi Perry doesn't grasp the offense? Because that has to be the only thing. Okay, I'm going to go safe route because he at least knows the offense, versus the kid that's got the higher ceiling that can't grasp the offense. But I just can't believe that he can't grasp the offense. His talent isn't going to surpass that decision, even if you have to dumb down the playbook from 100% to 70% to play the guy with the better arm talent and running ability. You do that, don't you?
Absolutely. And that goes back to my point. Like, if you can't excuse me, if you can't tailor your system to fit or work with elite talent, then your system sucks, period, point blank. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're talking about culinary, if you're talking about music, if you're talking about sports or whatever. I mean, if you have a system and you have an elite talent in that realm, and I mean, N'Kosi Perry has great talent. I'm not going to say that he has great demonstrable skill. Jared Williams, same thing, very good talent. Cade Weldon, better talent than people think. But I mean, he's not on N'Kosi or Jared's level. Excuse me. But if you have talent of that type, you have to figure out a way to make it work, not to fit the talent to the system, but to fit the system to the talent. I mean, again, I'm not making a direct comparison here, but Clemson with Deshaun Watson made the system work to his talent. Like, you didn't do the same things that you did with, I forget the kid's name, Kelly Stout.
Cole Stout.
Cole Stout.
Yeah.
Cole style. Yeah. He didn't do the same things because he's not the same player and he has this elite skill set. I mean, Lamar Jackson at Louisville, they didn't do the exact same things. They had to tweak it because his skill set necessitated that. Now, I mean, obviously you're going to have some foundational things that you're not going to really compromise, but dude, you got 3 guys. I mean, really, you know, you got Nkosi and Jaren, who are a step above Cade, but still, all 3 of those guys have more talent, more physical talent than Malik Rozier. Why have you not been able to figure out a way to unleash that, to harness that, and then to use that to your great advantage? It doesn't make sense. And yeah, it is, you know, okay, like, yeah, like, okay, Nkosi Perry, he's not, and, you know, the thing is, Mark Richt wants the quarterback to be able to get up on the whiteboard and say, okay, I threw this ball because they're playing, you know, cover 2 robber and they're doing this and they rolled this way and that means that, you know, my check is here and I'm supposed to do Nkosi Perry, look, hey, coach, the guy was open, the ball was there. I'm not going to give you the whole chapter. I'm not going to give you the whole War and Peace novel about it. I'm going to give you the Cliff Notes. The guy was open, the ball was there. What else you want me to do, coach? You know, but what he wants them to do is be able to go through all the steps of the process and I don't care about that. You know what I mean? Like, this is a results-based business. And if the result is proper, I mean, within reason, obviously. You don't need him going out there and changing the plays like Willie Beeman in any given Sunday or anything like that. But, I mean, I'm just so frustrated because there are guys with more talent than Malik Rozier, and it is frustrating and mind-boggling that there's not been any kind of concession or like alteration or adjustment to meet them halfway to use that talent to the great advantage of everybody, the player and the program and the team all put together. But instead, you know, you kind of get that my way or the highway, and, you know, it's going to be this way. And even if it doesn't work, this is what it's going to be. And everybody, you know, if you don't like it, you know, you can boo or you can not watch or not come or whatever. And it's not that we delight in booing. It's not that we delight in not going. It's not like we delight in not watching. Like, I mean, there was Randy Shannon and Al Golden's tenure. Like, everybody had time in there to boo and not go and fly banner and all those things. But again, this program is ready to take a step to be towards or at the top of the ACC. Not saying that we're going to beat Clemson, like, you know, consistently or anything, but in that conversation and having games where there is competition, not a 35-3, not a 58-0. And it's just frustrating because, I mean, it's crazy that everybody can see what's going on or have the same mindset or viewpoint on it because it's very clear. Even after the first throw that Nkosi Perry made on Saturday, he has a different kind of arm, and the offense just looked different and moved different. Everything happened in a different, snappier, quicker, more upbeat, energetic, up-tempo, and successful kind of way with him out there. But we're still going with this other average kid. I mean, there's something to be said for loyalty, but dude, I mean, I don't know, it's just frustrating to see the talent that we have at the position. And while we're on the topic, not just at quarterback, you're playing Robert Knowles over Gervin Hall at safety. Why? You're playing Javonte Dean over Al Blades and over DJ Ivey and Gilbert Frierson at cornerback. Why? So we can get roasted again. How many yards did Joe Burrow threw for 140 yards in the opener? 93 of those were on passes directed towards Javonte Dean, or the guy he was supposed to be covering. But Javonte Dean is out here doing circles and everything, and this guy's running butt naked wide open so that he was able to hit. Like, it. I get the conservative approach. I get the approach of if you have elite guys at the top level, that you play them while you grow the younger guys. But at quarterback and at some other positions, we're seeing that not happen, that you're sticking with average talented guys in spite of the great talent that you have behind them, and it doesn't really make sense. But, you know, hey, that's just me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, especially when there's a lot of scrutiny placed on the position of head coach and you're at an elite school, a lot of eyes are watching, and you're paid a lot of money, and there's a whole different perception and I hate to jump to conclusions, and people that watch me on a regular basis know that I call off the dogs, and I'm the last guy to jump to conclusions based on week 1 results. But I'm putting a few together here: the Miami LSU game versus the Virginia Tech Florida State game, and saying, okay, suddenly the narrative may have changed from we're automatically moving ahead 12 weeks to placing Miami in the ACC championship game to, oh, we might have a division race here, because we've got Duke playing some pretty good football. We got Virginia Tech playing really well after one game against a troubled opponent, but very talented opponent in Florida State. So maybe there's going to be a division race. We gave it a given that Miami was going to play in the conference championship game. Now it's maybe, so if I'm Mark Richt, I guess I'm just thinking, don't I want to go 10-2 or 11-1 and secure that ACC championship game berth versus, man, jeopardizing that we're going to go 8-4 or 90 and struggle to win the division?
I mean, again, anything more than 2 losses is a failure for a season to me. Just with the way that the schedule is and with the talent of this team.
He's playing with his own job.
I mean,
not that he's going to get fired. I don't mean that,
right. No.
But he's playing with his own perception of his ability, and the team result reflects directly on him and his ability. And
I mean, it does, you know, and I mean, to some point, yeah, you know, you got to coach guys up, you got to get them to perform. And you know, if guys have marginal talent, obviously the level of execution has to be more perfect than if you have more talent. For error, I would say in that. Plus the fact, like, why do you not? I mean, I want to play the best guys. You know, like I want to play the most talented guys. You know, and I know that you got to coach them up, and sometimes, you know, there is the, you know, lack of experience and things like that. But you know how you get experience? By playing. You know, there's so many things going on, and it just, you know, and I know that this conversation is like turning throughout the course of the year to like what's wrong and all the pessimistic kind of side of things. But I mean, when you play as badly as we did against LSU in the opener, I mean, and expose so many different holes and problems. Yeah, like I'm going to sit here and we're going to talk about them, you know, and like it's not all the glitters is not gold, you know, like even last week, like I gave probably some average grades in the good, the bad, and the ugly. And people were like, oh, well, like you can't take anything away from playing Savannah State. That's like playing a JV high school team. Like you're going to blow them all the way out. Like they had less than 100 yards total offense. They had negative yards rushing. Like that's what it should have been. But I mean, Miami, as soon as Miami walked in the stadium wearing their jerseys, that game was won. And that game was won by a big margin. So, yeah, you want to see some execution things get tightened up. You want to see the performance get better. But, like, man, I mean, at some point, you got to cut them loose. And, you know, Larry Scott, our old coach, and he was the interim coach after Golden got fired. That's what he said against that Duke game a couple years ago after Al Golden got fired. He said, cut it loose. You know, and he's telling the team, like, you know, you're, you know, thinking too much. You're doing all these things. Yo, go out there and cut it loose. You're bigger than them. You're faster than them. You're stronger than them. You know your alignment assignment technique. Go out there, cut it loose, and do it. And you're going to be able to do that. And that's what I need from this team right now. It seems like they're walking on eggshells. It seems like you're reading your own press clippings. You're smelling yourself a lot over the course of the offseason. And you're going around and you're playing not to lose, not playing to win. I need this team and this coaching staff to cut it loose. I'm tired of holding the reins back. I'm tired of this conservatism that we're seeing. Cut it loose, please, for me.
Powerful statement from Cam Underwood. So you combine the pipes with the fervor, and then you get the whole deal. I've got the mic, and Cam doesn't have the mic, and the bass comes through regardless, but it especially comes through when he's either on a roll from a place of a little bit of anger, some good anger. I like to hear it, or just exuberation.
I mean,
exuberance,
yeah,
I should say.
Yeah, and I mean, I do have a microphone and everything, and you know, like I said, I'm a trained singer. I've been singing my entire life, so obviously projection is a thing that I just kind of do on a natural basis. But yeah, man, I mean, just and it's hard for me sometimes because, like, yeah, you know, like I'm a blogger and I run a site and I'm, you know, media credentialed and we do, you know, like these things, and I try to be pragmatic and things like that. So, you know, like using my analytical brain, but then also like I stand with the U. That's what it says on my T-shirt. If you can see it on the video, or I'm just telling you if you're listening to the podcast later. I went to Miami. Like I bleed orange and green. Like I'm in love. Like I want to be great. And seeing these things that, in my estimation, are holding us back from being better than we are, if not necessarily great, because I know that other people are going, Miami's not great. But okay, fine, yeah. I mean, I want to be great, but these things that are holding us back from being better than we are, it's irksome. And just the normal coaching platitudes of, oh, blah, 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 and this guy has to do better in practice and blah, blah. Some guys are just gamers, coach. It'd be like that. I played with guys who were like that. Average. You go out on the court, they're dropping 25. You go out on the baseball field, they're going to hit a ball 410 feet. Why? Because that's what they do. But you're not going to hold them back because practice? Allen Iverson, practice? I mean, I get that you had to do your job in practice, but I'm not going to hold back my more talented guys because of that. And it just, I don't know. Like I said, it's just frustrating. It's just frustrating.
Well, I'm going to interpret what you said about loyalty, because I think there are different levels of loyalty. There's practical loyalty that makes sense. Okay, you've got a senior who plays really well. He's limited, but he knows his assignments. And you could take a number of guys across the country, number of guys that we've seen from year to year through college football that are really good, solid senior starting quarterbacks, and they're really good and they do their job and they make their throws. And they got a kid who's a freshman or sophomore who's lights out, better than them, more talented, but they're not ready to play the position. And this guy's doing the job, but your guy's not doing the job. So there's a difference there. Loyalty, it would be one thing if Malik Rocher had saved one of Mark Richt's children from a burning building, but just to play him because he's a senior and he's put in the reps and done the time. But haven't a ton of kids on that roster. There's probably a number of seniors that Miami has on the roster that aren't as good as a sophomore that plays ahead of them. I would think that happens in other positions, and those kids have worked just as hard, hit the weight room, done all those things the right way, but they don't play.
I mean, Miami has won awards for community service. So yeah, these guys go out to these community schools and do all those things. But I mean, I'm not going to call people's names because I'm not in them for not being good football players. But if you look at Miami's roster and you go down and you look at some of these juniors and seniors, even fifth-year seniors, say, oh, he's on the team? Really? No, because he doesn't play. So you wouldn't even know that. So yeah, at other positions, and you want to, I mean, it's the same thing for me, like Jason Candle in the piece that I talked about from the Toledo Blade. He didn't even try to fake the funk this week and say, this is just another game. He was like, no, this is not another game. And I'm not even going to lie to you about that. Quarterback is not any other position. That's why when I wrote the recruiting rules, the first rule was about quarterback in a vacuum by itself, because the quarterback position is singular. It matters more. So the performance of the person at that position obviously matters to that level as well. And yeah, like you said, there are players at other positions: offensive line, defensive tackle, safety, corner, linebacker, with more tenured experience than guys who play and start, because those other guys are better and have more talent. And I think that maybe, just maybe, it's come time to do that same kind of a thing at back as well.
I'm only going to ask one other thing, because you've given us so much time tonight, Cam, and I appreciate it, as always. Is there a level of frustration? I know there's a level of frustration overall, but to this particular question that I'm going to pose, that if you lose a game like you did against LSU, now, if you win that LSU game, just like Virginia Tech against Florida State, and then they're playing like Old Dominion, East Carolina, William and Mary, before they've got to play a decent team in Duke, then you ride that, oh, wow, we beat Florida State, we get to blast 3 teams, and it's all good, and we're going to be 4-0. You look forward to that, and whatever happens, you're going to win, whatever, by 30, by 50, whatever it is. But you lose to LSU. And now you go through Savannah State and all these other teams that you should beat. Toledo, they're in a different category, certainly, but Miami should take care of business. Is it rough getting through these few weeks, because you know that okay, North Carolina is bad, but it's a conference game at least. And then Florida State, and you got to wait to see, okay, has this team progressed and are they going to be what we expected them to be? We got to wait for this to
No,
see.
I don't think that there's frustration on my part, at least. I mean, yeah, like you do kind of have to go through these things. And I don't even think that it was necessarily losing to LSU. It was the way that we lost to LSU. Like I said, I mean, most people turned off the television at 33-3. They didn't know anything past that, or 30-3, whatever it was. They didn't see anything past that. And I sat there and I saw everything. Yeah, you got a couple late touchdowns to make it cosmetically look better, but I mean, they blew us out. It was bad. And I think the way that happened is what has impacted everything else. And, after that, and I tried to take the rose-colored or orange and green-colored glasses throughout the offseason, and look from an optimistic standpoint, but, also acknowledging that, poor performance could have happened, and it did. But from here on in, like, you're not going to fool me, like I'm not going to give any benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to err on the side of Miami or Malik Rozier or like, no, like that's not going to happen. Like I need to see it, and I need to see it against good teams. And I mean, honestly, last week wasn't really that sharp. Absent that one throw to Jeff Thomas, which was freaking so good. And that's the frustrating part. Pinpoint on the dot, hit him on the run, scored from 67 yards at the pylon because the free safety was in the middle of the field and he had an angle on him and almost got caught. But I mean, that throw was, and again, Jeff Thomas was running wide open. So yeah, but I'm fine going through these other games. I'm fine going through all of that. I don't feel anxious or frustrated in having to go through the rest of the season. My entire outlook on the season changed based upon the result and the performance that we saw at LSU. And my frustration comes from the fact of I need to try to, and take the positive, the pro-Miami view of, oh, well, we blew out Savannah State, go into Toledo and you do IU and you do whatever, and everything is great, right? And No, I wrote that there were struggles last year, even when Miami was winning games, and losing, exacerbates those even more. So, I will suffer through and make it through all these things and all these games while Miami is winning, still being critical of performance that needs to improve. Offensive line needs to improve. Tackling, actually, it really improved against Savannah State, but again, it's Savannah State. But watching A.J. Dillon tonight, arm tackles, Michael Pinckney, Shaq Quarterman, those arm tackles against LSU that Nick Brossette ran through, this guy is 5 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier. You know what I mean? Like, yo, you can't do those same kind of things. So those need to improve. The coverages and, the blitz timing and the pass rush. Joe Jackson, I know he's been getting double teamed. I know they've been chipping him with a tight end and a running back and everything. He hasn't done anything yet this year. John Garvin on the other side is eating because the focus is on 99, not 97, his number. But I still need Joe Jackson to do more. I mean, there are things that I'm going to still be critical of because to get to the level of performance that Miami could get to and that we pretty much all aspire for them to get to, I'm going to have to, really continue just to be critical. And even in spite of the result of the game being hopefully proper, there's still other things that are going to need to be developed. And, I think that just like last year when people were not listening because Miami won 10 games in a row, I will run again and have a similar performance. Those things are going to happen again where people are going to miss the forest through the trees because the end of the game, Miami had more points, which, yeah, is the goal, but there's other things still where you can get better. I mean, to me, like it's like Tiger Woods back before, back when he was Tiger Woods, a decade, 15 years ago. He won the U.S. Open by the most strokes in the history of golf and fired his swing coach, got a new swing coach, and rebuilt his swing from the ground up. Why? Because he wanted to be better, because the process wasn't good enough, even if the result was still good. I think that Miami is in a similar place. There was just like last year, but the process still needs upgrading, and the frustration of people overlooking the shortcomings just because Miami's won some games, that's going to be the thing that grates on me.
Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Here's the deal. Okay, we have a number of people on the live chat. We have a number of people watching. So if you just love Miami football, that's all you care about, go to State of the U, check out the articles, put it to your favorites, do whatever you need to do to make sure it's locked and loaded and ready to go. You don't need to watch me all the time. You love Miami football. I do have a Miami channel that I take all the Miami content and I just move it there so you don't have to be cluttered up with the other teams and the other conferences. It's all Miami. Mark Rogers TV, Miami. Go there if you want to check out the videos there. But certainly go to State of the U and check out Cam and the rest of the crew right there and covering the Canes. All right, if you love college football, this is what we do all the time. We bring on bloggers like Cam. I can't guarantee everybody's going to be as good as Cam, but I have a number of guys that are extremely good, knowledgeable, know their stuff. They come on and talk college football all the time. It was Ohio State tonight. It was Washington tonight as the Buckeyes prepare for TCU, and Washington's got a huge game against the Utes. So we talked Florida State last night, Georgia, South Carolina, everybody you can imagine. So lock it in right here. Subscribe, like, comment, and I can't imagine anybody else discusses, debates, and analyzes college football on a regular basis like we do right here. But again, Miami fans, if that's all you like, check out the State of the U right there. But if you want to check out the conversations between Cam and myself, then make sure you're catching them here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Cam, you have done a tremendous job of I did not anticipate a Toledo preview reaching these standards. So thank you so much.
I mean, I didn't either, but I tried to exceed expectations at all times, and we try to do that at State of the U. So come on, check us out. We got all kinds of things over there. We got recruiting, we got basketballs. We're about to kick up football. We have a new gambling, a handicapping guy. Our previous one went. We separated amicably. Just whatever. But one of our old guys is back, and he loves doing that. And went 9-1, I think, 2 weeks ago with this pick. So, if you're into that or into pretty much anything else, come check us out, man. We're pretty good.
Was that 9-1 against the spread?
It was like, I can actually bring it up. Yeah, it was like 7-1 against the spread. Hit a teaser and a parlay.
Wow.
Both. So yeah, it was last week. I think he was like just barely around 500. I think he was like 5-6 or 5-4 or something like that. But I mean, still over 500 for the year. So I mean, we got some good stuff. So check it out.
Vegas knows what it's doing. All you have to do is hit about 50. Once you hit to about 52.5% threshold, you start to make money. So 53%, you're good. You're going to make a couple bucks. Anything past that is gravy, and you can win money. It's 91 cents on the dollar there for against the spread in Vegas. That's the typical line. Cam Underwood, State of the U. We appreciate it as always. I'll remind everyone that as Cam knows, Dan Rubin loves Boston College, and he had a big time tonight, Eagles Unlimited. So he's going to join me as soon as he gets back from the game. And he's going to jump on the line for some instant analysis of Boston College's big win against Wake to move to 3-0. And that's going to come up at some point in which Dan is able to get back online. And I've got a number of people who want to talk to me on the phone line. That's 860-325-3687. So we'll be back at some point a little bit later with that. Cam, we appreciate it. We'll see you next time.
All right, you guys have a good one.